Welcome back, friends. We are going to read Chapter 6 of The Mighty Miss Malone, and we are actually in Mrs. Keller's actual house this time for this video, so kind of funny. I feel like every time I record one of these read-alouds, I'm somewhere new. Chapter 6, Hershey's Kisses and Lockjaw. I walked into the hallway. My path was lit up with sunshine and happiness and bright flowers. To make it even more perfect, Clarice was sitting on the floor right under the picture of President Roosevelt with tears rimming out of her eyes. She jumped up. "Oh, Dessa, please! I'm really, really sorry I acted that way. I was so surprised and happy and I lost my mind for a minute. Will you ever forgive me?" "You don't even need to ask." We hooked arms and started our walk home. What did Mrs. Needham tell you? She wouldn't change your grade, would she? Clarice put her hand to my ear. "Don't tell anyone, but I have an uncle in Indianapolis who got tried for murder. He got away with it, Dessa. If I write him, he can give us a plan for robbing Mrs. Needham without getting caught." "No, Clarice. Second place was to teach me a lesson. I won't even mind if Mrs. Needham gives me a B+ or 2. I'm sure your essay was much better than mine." Clarice stopped and looked at me. "Dessa Malone. Thank you very much." I pulled her along, anxious to get home and talk to Mother. "What's in the bag?" I wanted so much to tell Clarice everything and show her the beautiful clothes, but I had promised. "Oh, it's just some papers and a few things that, thank goodness we were walking past the Himmelocks." Clarice pointed at the window and said, "That dress is so horrible. I wouldn't even wear it to a stoning of Dolly Peaches." Maybe Mother would let me give Clarice my other dress, the one I wear to church. It has a lot less patches than the one Clarice wears now. We watched Clarice's house and hugged. She said, "Only one more day, Dessa. I'm really going to miss school and Mrs. Needham, even if she gave me the wrong grade. What a good friend." I had to tell Clarice. "Mrs. Needham said she's going to tutor us after school and on weekends next year." Clarice said, "Really?" I said, "Really." Clarice walked up on her porch and turned around to wave. At the same time, we both held up 2 fingers and made our special sign. 2 girls, 1 heart. I ran the rest of the way home. Need a little drink of water here, excuse me. Mother! "Hey, sis, you forget it's the end of the month?" I had forgotten. Mother would be waiting in line for the food they gave away at the mission. Jimmy was sitting on the couch with a pencil and a couple pieces of paper. "What are you doing?" "This? Just drawing the fight and making plans." Jimmy's plans were mostly about murdering whoever was the latest bully in his life. He's lucky he's kind of lazy. If he followed through with any of these plans, I'd get to wear the new dress and shoes to watch Jimmy take that long walk to Old Sparky. I stuck out my hand. Let me see. As good a singer as Jimmy is, he's just as bad a picture drawer. The first page showed a man in shorts with boxing gloves on them. He had M-S-G-E-R-N, Miss Jern, written across his chest. By his feet was a head that was frowning. Next to him was a man with J-O-E, Joe, written across his chest. He had a huge smile and was holding his arms above his head. He was wearing boxing gloves and was waving a flag that was probably an American flag, even though it only had 2 stars and 3 stripes. Check this picture out. It's pretty cute. Like this video if you can draw a better picture than that. Jimmy said, "See, that's what's going to happen on the 17th. Joe Louis is going to knock Max Smelling's head off. I rolled my eyes. If I heard one more thing about that ridiculous, worthless fight, I would lose my mind. I looked at the other drawing. This plan was just as horrible. This picture showed 3 people in what looked like the biggest Hershey's kiss in the world. For some reason, there was a big cloud raining down on the kiss. Wonder what this is supposed to be. Let's see what Jimmy has to say about this picture. The first person in the plan was a boy with his arms spread wide. I knew it was Jimmy. In his pictures, he always draws himself as big and bumpy with muscles. In his hand was a box of something that had N-I-T-U-L-S, nittles, written across the front of it. He'd drawn lines from the nittles that pointed at the Hershey's kiss. On the other side of the Hershey's kiss was a boy who was standing with his arms spread. This had to be Dolly Peaches because of all the teeth that the boy had. The third person in the plan was me. I was holding something with B-I-G-B-O-O-K, big book, written on it, and had a gigantic toe. But I'm usually the only one who could figure out what Jimmy's plans mean. This one, not so much. I said, okay, it's you, Dolly Peaches, and me, right? Yeah. And Dolly standing up, but he's dead? Oh yeah, that's a picture of the exact second Dolly, my goodness, starts pushing up daisies. That's figurative language for what? I pointed at the huge Hershey's kiss. Why is this chocolate candy here? No, sis, that ain't chocolate. That's a haystack. He said it like I was the one who was crazy. And why is my toe so? A light went on my head. An epiphany. When I was littler, I used to have accidents all the time. Jimmy joked that even if it hadn't snowed for years, I'd find something as small as a puddle of frozen bird pee and would slip on it and sprain my ankle. And my feet were like magnets for every rusty nail, broken bottle, or jaggedy tin can and lid in Gary. Again, here's that picture. I had been 6 years old and remember Father holding my ankle tight. Mother's reading specs were on his eyes, and a straight pin was in between his thumb and pointer finger. Jimmy was squeezing my hand and had given me a folded-up wash rag to bite down on. He'd seen that in a Western movie when someone was digging a bullet out of a white cowboy who had gotten plugged by an Indian. I didn't have a bullet in me, just another splinter. Father said, "Doesn't Malone, looks to me like you're doing something that only a few of the smartest professors at a few of the best colleges have ever done." A little pinch of pain made me squinch my eyes shut. "Sorry," Father said. "That's right. You're going to be responsible for a change in the King's English. Another archaic saying is doomed to bite the dust due to Daddy's darling daughter Dessa." Remember, Father loves alliteration. He dug the straight pin around in my foot to make the sliver show its head so that he could pull the splinter out with his tweezer. I pulled out the wash rag for a second and said, "How could I change the language?" "Well," he said, grabbing the tip of the splinter with his tweezers, "because of you, that old saying that something is as hard to find as a needle in a haystack won't be used anymore. It will become moot. Folks will learn if they want to find that needle, all they have to do is have you stand within 30 feet of that haystack. The needle will come flying out of the hay at you like it was an arrow shot out of an itsy-bitsy bow, and your rusty old foot was the bullseye." I felt the sliver slide out. Father said, "Wow, that's a beauty. Even for you, Dardwat." That was what he called me when he didn't feel like saying darling daughter Dessa all the way out. Jimmy's plan was to trick Dolly Peaches into standing by a haystack where my crazy brother had emptied 2 boxes of needles, which Jimmy spelled out Nituls, nituls. Then I'd walk to the haystack until I was close enough for the needles to shoot out at my big toe. They'd come so fast and hard that Dolly would run through by 100 needles and would drop dead. My goodness. I said, I get most of it, but why is it raining in only one spot? Jimmy said, Pa told me about this thing called lockjaw, or it's where if you step on something rusty, you might think you're okay once the wound heals up, but you aren't. The rust puts a bunch of germs in you, and they come out later and make it so your jaw gets locked shut. Then you starve to death. So it's raining so the needles will get rusty. Then once they go through Dolly Peaches, they will kill him in a couple of weeks when the lockjaw germs get strong. I gave the drawing back to him. If you studied it as hard as you plot murders, you would get all A's. Sure, sis, what's in the bag, Goose? I showed him my dress and shoes. Wow, are you going to show this to Mom? Of course I am. Jimmy said, hold on, Tessa. I wished I could rewrite my essay about my family, because there's a trait that Jimmy has that's even more annoying than his Napoleon complex. It's when he imitates Father. He always pretends he's smoking a pipe, even though Father has a little asthma and has never smoked anything. But Jimmy's voice and acting are a whole lot like Father's. Jimmy pointed the invisible pipe at me and said, let's look at this clearly. He crossed his legs and looked off over my shoulder. Something Father does when he's thinking hard about what he's going to say. You've already fallen in love with this dress and these shoes, right? I do like them an awful lot. Jimmy/Father put the invisible pipe back in his mouth, nodded, and said, we'll say that's close enough to love to be worried. So we have to look at the consequences of what you want to do. Let's say you show them to Mother, and she decides you have to give them back. What then? You've lost your new clothes just like that. He snapped his fingers. I hadn't thought of that. Jimmy uncrossed his legs, leaned forward, and flicked ashes from his pipe onto the floor. He's such a good actor that I almost yelled at him for messing up the floor that I'd swept. He waved the pipe in front of himself. My suggestion, darling daughter Deza, is to decide which of the two things you like the most and show Mother the other one. That way, if she says take it back, you've only lost one, and you can sneak around with the other. Thank you, Jimmy, or Father, whoever you are. That sounds like a good idea. Not really, but that is a kind thing to say to someone who's a great singer. A good imitator and full of more baloney than Mr. Schwartz's butcher shop. I sat on my bed upstairs. I'd spread the dress next to me and set the shoes on the floor. They were so beautiful. I wished I hadn't told Jimmy. Before I'd talked to him, I thought I'd just run into my bedroom, secretly put the clothes on, and show my mother my special new dress and the magic clickety-clackety shoes. Mother would say something like, "Oh, Deza, you are so beautiful." If Jimmy wasn't around, she'd even say, "And look how tall you are in those new shoes." As I smoothed my fingers over the dress, I started having worries. Maybe I should show her only the shoes, or no, maybe only my dress. The other brain in my head said, "He's right, you know, kiddo." And just like that, I did know. If the bad brain was agreeing with him, then Jimmy was wrong. I gave myself a good soapy wash and smoothed my hair back a little with Vaseline. I put baking soda in my palm and brushed my teeth. I rubbed some more of the Vaseline onto my legs and arms until they were nice and shiny. I put on the new slip, the socks, and the shoes. Then, being extra careful not to get any Vaseline on it, I slid the most beautiful piece of blue gingham clothes ever made over my head. The mirror in the bathroom is really tiny, so I reached up on my tiptoes, pulled it off, the nail above the wash bin, and moved it up and down so I could see every last part of me. The dress was gorgeous. I walked back to my room on my tiptoes so the shoes wouldn't click-clack and ruin my surprise. I picked up Great Expectations, sat on the bed, smoothed my dress, crossed my ankles, and started reading. I hadn't read 5 pages when I heard the screen door open downstairs and Mother said, "Hello, James, how was school?" My heart beat so loud I didn't hear Jimmy's answer. I opened my door and clapped down the steps. Mother said, "What is that sound?" I stepped into the living room. Mother stumbled back till her legs hit the couch and she crashed down. One of the paper sacks she'd been carrying split open. A big loaf of cheese and a box of powdered milk bounced off of the couch. Her hand covered her mouth and said, "Deza, turn around." I knew by the happy look on her face that she wasn't going to take my clothes away. I spun around until my dress blossomed and became a beautiful blue and white rose. Jimmy started clapping and whistling. I finally fell on the couch next to Mother. I told her how Mrs. Needham had said she'd been waiting 1,000 years for me to be her student and how she was going to tutor me next year. Mother said, "I'm not the least bit surprised. Your mother and I always tell both of you how talented you are. It feels like Christmas in July when someone else agrees, especially someone as wise as Mrs. Needham." I told her about Mrs. Needham's niece and the clothes. "Can I keep them?" Mother said, "Stand up again." I stood up, and something about the dress and shoes made me go right back into a spin. Mother laughed. "Deza Malone, that dress and those shoes were meant for you. The only time you've looked more beautiful was when they handed you to me on the day you were born. Help me get these groceries into the kitchen and we'll both start working on our thank you notes to that wonderful woman." As I picked up the welfare food, Jimmy said, "You lucked up." I slapped his head. "No, Jimmy Malone, the truth is always the best way." He said, "Not in real life, Deza. Life's been truth. Let's be truthful and admit it. You just lucked up. I gotta tell you though, Ma was right. That get-up was made for you. You're one sharp bit of calico." Me and the cheese and the milk and the ruined paper sack twirled into the kitchen. I couldn't wait for Father to get home, even if he hadn't found work. This dress would cheer up the saddest person in the world. That's chapter 6. Chapter 7 is the mysterious smile of the man on the Quaker Oats box. Interesting title for a chapter. Chapter 6 quiz. What character trait do you think Clarice shows when she is sitting in the hall crying? At the beginning of the story, was she showing that she's caring, worried, scared, or alarmed? What character trait? Not an emotion. What character trait? Where was Mother when Deza came home, running home after school? Where was Mother? Was she at work, picking up Jimmy from school, getting food at the mission, or walking to the store? Number 3. Deza thought Jimmy had drawn a giant Hershey kiss in his plan, but actually it was supposed to be a haystack, grass, pile of rocks, or large hill. Number 4. Why did Jimmy draw a large haystack with needles inside? Because Deza would fall in and someone would have to come save her. Deza would attract the needles to her big toe and they would shoot out, which would catch Dolly off guard and he would run into them. See, Dolly would run into the pile of hay to see if he could disprove the saying it's hard to find a needle in the haystack. Or because he thinks needles are cool. Question 5. What does Deza feel after talking to Jimmy about her new items? Does she feel nervous her mom will make her take them back? Happy that Jimmy knew her secret? Fear that Dad will yell at her. Just 3 options that time. Couple more questions. How did Deza's mom react when she came downstairs in her new outfit? Was she mad? Was she happy that someone else noticed Deza's talent and let her keep the clothes? Or was she worried that someone would think Deza's brother stole the clothes for her? Number 7. Why was Deza excited for her father to get home? Use some evidence from the story. Why was she excited? It said right there at the end if you need to rewind. Make sure you've got a capital letter, your sentence is organized, you have punctuation, and your spelling is accurate. This last question is perfect for this week because we're reviewing characters. This time, they want you to write down 3 character traits for each character listed below. And here are the 3 characters. Deza, they want you to come up with 3 good character traits for Deza. Mom, they want you to come up with 3 good character traits for Mom. And Jimmy, they want you to come up with 3 good character traits for Jimmy. Now, you might not be able to come up with 3 character traits just from chapter 6. You might have to go back and listen to some of the previous chapters. I would especially recommend, I think it's chapter 2. Nope, it's chapter 1. When Deza was writing the essay about her family, they talk about a lot of character traits in chapter 1. So if you don't have enough evidence from chapter 6, you can always go back and see if you can come up with some more character traits. I hope that you enjoyed chapter 6 of The Mighty Miss Malone. I'm so happy that I finally figured out how I could put just one chapter in just one video so I wouldn't have to make 2 parts. Hopefully you appreciate that too, and I hope you have a great night.